comments in here is protocol, right in the beginning. Okay, so guys, I'm extra excited about doing this session because this is, to me, really important stuff. To some of you guys might sit through this and be half asleep. For others, you might really enjoy it. Hopefully, for most of you, you actually take it and use it. Okay? But the reason I'm really excited about it is that everything that we're going to be talking about tonight, the majority of it comes from either from a specific book that heavily influenced a lot of my teaching style and teaching ideas, and or just stuff and ideas and ways of teaching that I evolved into during my teaching experience of just learning. I started out just like the rest of you guys from a white belt, ended up starting this school as a first degree black belt, and of course in hindsight when you look back 10 or 13 years now, you realize how much you didn't know back then, right? I kind of knew when I started the school 13 years ago, I didn't know a heck of a lot, but you're just going along doing the best you can at the time, right? And so obviously over that period of time, there comes a lot of experience, and you get that experience from a lot of different things. You get it from just doing things, just the experience of teaching and learning as you go, but also from other resources, including the Grandmasters, Grandmaster Ed Cell, Grandmaster Brenda Cell, but lots of other resources too. So as a learning black belt, like all of you guys should be students. I'm a student, you're students. We're always learning from wherever we can learn, okay? And we learn from other people too, which we'll talk about briefly in the notes here tonight too, okay? So I'm super excited to be just sharing this stuff because it's really important stuff and really important fundamentals. The other reason this sort of came about is beginning of this summer, I just pulled out this old book that I had, and it used to go by the title of The Inner Athlete, and it's now called Mind, Body, Mastery. And a lot of you individuals, I sent out links in that to that, but anybody in this room should read that book, Mind, Body, Mastery. Okay? So you should get it. You can get it on hard copy, you can get ebook, you can get audio. So I picked up the audio versions. It's been awesome. I drove to Sparwood and back on Tuesday and listening to books all the way there, all the way back. It's awesome. So one way or another, you need to listen or read that book, Mind, Body, Mastery. The cool thing about it, and another thing that really excites me about that book, is it talks about all the important things we need to know as elite athletes, or even average athletes. It's stuff you need to know. But not only that, Dan Millman, the author, very clearly explains the value and the importance of why and how, what we do as athletes, all the important stuff, how it applies to everyday life. Okay? So in other words, if there's basic principles, like say just discipline, for example. Okay? If we're supposed to apply discipline in learning Taekwondo, you got to use that same discipline in your everyday life, right? So all these aspects of what we do in Taekwondo apply to our everyday life. Okay? So that's why, another reason why it's so important. It's important for you guys to know as instructors and students. Okay, so again, just taking a moment. A lot of you guys were in on the session we did with Miss Abby towards the end of last spring, where we did some team building stuff. We redid our mission statement. So I just want everybody to be aware. Make sure this has been in front of you. You've seen it. This is our mission statement: to inspire, elevate, and provide tools for change and growth of individuals by leading them to become strong in mind, body, and spirit. Mission statement means this is our mission. This is why we're here. This is why we come to teach. This is why I come to teach every week, week after week, for 13 years and counting. Okay? So that's our mission statement. I just got a note on here on a mission from God. So it's my favorite line of one of my favorite lines of all time in movies, right? Like Dan Belushi in the Blues Brothers. I'm on a mission, we're on a mission from God. But it's cool. You have to have a reason why you're here. You have to have a purpose and a reason why you exist, okay? And most of you know, I feel that this school exists because God called me to start this school, right? And I'm just being obedient. This school is here because of that, and we carry on year after year after year as long as God wants it here, okay? Respect and protocol, I just want to mention just quickly in terms of instructors, because we're all black belts here, we're all instructors. What are we, who can tell me quickly, what are we to all the other students in the school, to the color belts? What are we? Hey, role models? Role models, exactly. Okay? If we don't model, if I don't model, then chances are you guys aren't going to be doing it. And if you guys aren't doing it, chances are the color belts aren't going to be doing it. We can always do a better job with protocol. And one of those things that just ripples through everything you do is just how you address each other. How we address each other, how we address each other in terms of our names and stuff. Sometimes it seems a little bit stuffy, some a little bit, oh, like that's an extra word that I have to get out of my mouth. Right? Like saying, yes, sir, or whatever. Like, is it that big of a deal? Okay? But it's got to be modeled. Okay? All you guys here, for the most part, are good at that. I either hear from you, sir, or Master Dean, but every once in a while I hear Dean, or like you're my mother or something.
I only did that once.
Okay, so we need to address each other properly, but it has to start with me too. So Mr. Bain, when he's in the dojang, I don't ever hear anything else out of his mouth except sir when he comes to see me. Okay? But we need to apply that all the time, everything we're doing here. Okay? It's either Master Dean, and I need to do it back to you guys. I'm one of the worst culprits, because if I expect you to be addressing me as Master Dean, I have to be addressing you as Mr. Bain or Miss Marilyn or whoever, and or the other level we should take it to, if we can do that, is by your instructor's title. Okay? That's Grandmaster Cell's protocol. Okay? So if I'm going to talk to Mr. Bain, I should be saying Head Instructor Mr. Bain, or Head Instructor Bain, or Head Instructor Jordahl. Okay? That's the full proper title. Okay? So the more we can do that, the better. And if you just make it a general habit, it gets easy and it ripples through the whole school. Okay? And if you're teaching on any kind of regular basis, you know right away when you're teaching a class and you get the respect back from the students, it makes your job that much easier teaching. Okay? So respect and protocol. Curriculum. What we're talking about tonight is not curriculum, guys. We're just talking about instructing principles, instructing ideas. Okay? We have the curriculum. We've got the blue book from the Grandmasters. We have that. But sometimes we need to refresh and know how to implant that book into our students. Okay? So that's what we're talking about tonight. There's a ton of good ideas in here. What these notes are from the book, Mind, Body, Mastery by Dan Millman. So for the most part, that's where these notes are from. And you should spend the time, everybody in this room should be reading that book or listening to that book sometime soon. Yes, Ms. Brown?
Okay, so Mind, Body, Mastery.
Correct. Okay, so here we go. So keys to success, okay? Again, bear with me, guys. So I'd like to get this done in a nice, I want to keep it going at a nice pace, so I don't want you guys falling asleep. But if you do got questions, ask. But, you know, if you can stay focused, that'll be awesome. Just try and keep things moving along. Okay, so keys to success. What I'm talking about here, guys, you'll see in the notes and the way I'm talking, sometimes I'm talking to you as a student, and sometimes I'm talking to you as an instructor. It's both the same thing. Okay, you understand? You've got to be good students to be good instructors, and you need to understand how it applies to you as a student in order for you to transfer that to your students. Okay? Make sense? So you'll just hear me talking two different ways, but they both apply to the same thing. Okay? So preparation. So you need to understand, as you're preparing and teaching students that are going to be future black belts, preparation, how important that is. Okay? And it starts with building a strong foundation. So everybody in this room understands that a house out on the street, across the street there, if there's no foundation under it, the house is going to fall over. Right? So you need to understand that as a student, but as an instructor as well. Don't scrimp on the foundation. Okay? So sometimes it might feel boring. I don't think it's usually that boring to new students, but it can be to black belts, to us, when we've been doing this for years and years. It's like, oh, here's the basic fundamentals, here's the stances. You can't ever underestimate how important that stuff is. Okay? If we can implant the basic fundamentals, the stances and things to the students and get that proper, that's our foundation that you build everything else on. And most of us now too here with any experience, if we look, now Mr. Bain had this experience especially this year because he did the bulk of the videoing, and we start videoing candidates for black stripe, okay? All of a sudden, oh gee, this is shaky, that's shaky, that's shaky. And we look back now and we could have spent maybe way more time on the foundation before these students get further up, okay? Doesn't mean that case all the time, but the foundation's important, okay? Basic fundamentals. Okay, and there are no shortcuts. So again, you got to take the time on the basic fundamentals, doing them right, whether it's a face chop, whether it's a square stance, whether it's a mid block. Do it right. Okay? Okay, what we do and therefore what we prepare is mind, body, spirit. Okay, what I'm talking about there again is, what are we here for? What are we trying to teach the students? You need to know why you're here. We're not just here to teach people how to block and punch. Okay? It's bigger than that. So you need to have that bigger vision when you're teaching. Okay? Not necessarily in the moment, but in general, before you're preparing for class as an instructor. It's important you come in before you're going to walk in onto the dojang floor to understand in your mind you have this bigger vision, bigger purpose of why you're here. Right, Hannah? Yeah, you're up there just teaching some little kids and feel like you're just babysitting sometimes, but you've got a bigger purpose of making them grow in mind, body, and spirit as little 5-, 6-year-olds that they're never going to forget for the rest of their life, right? Even some of them, if they never get to black belt, there'll be students, if you guys remember in school, elementary school, you had a teacher for 1 year and you never see that teacher again. But you think back, you can remember teachers, good or bad, that you remember for the rest of your life. That teacher I had, oh yeah, that teacher I had in grade 3. So even if these students we have here aren't with us for 4 years and they don't become black belts, you still have a huge influence in their life. Okay, so don't forget that. And you have to have that broader vision coming into the class. So that's what I'm talking about there by what we're doing here, why we're here. Okay? Step by step, break things down for the students. So when we're teaching basic fundamentals, okay, that's why we have fundamentals. Because we take a poomsae, the poomsae is broken down to the fundamentals, and we're teaching them step by step. But now you have to take the fundamental, the technique, and even break that down sometimes, okay? So you got to break down pattern number 1 into little bits, and sometimes you even got to break down the low block into little bits, okay? Step by step, so you dissect something. If you're going to repair something, probably most of you girls here wouldn't rebuild a carburetor on a car. We don't even have carburetors anymore. But anything mechanically, if it's not working, you have to take it apart, right? You got to take the pieces apart, see what's wrong. Okay? Just like our techniques, Taekwondo techniques, break them down, take them apart, and work on each little part. Take it apart and break it down. The illusion of difficulty. So when you got new students, they can come in here and they can be totally overwhelmed with what they're learning, okay, or what you're trying to teach them. So number 1, you probably don't want to shove down their throat right away, pattern number 1, 2, and 3, so they're so overwhelmed they're just going to turn around and quit. Because even the simplest thing, if you've never done martial arts before and you come walking in off the street, that can be pretty overwhelming, okay? And even for a lot of you guys, I can throw something new at you, and the first thing you do is you look at and see how difficult that is. Okay? We get this whole thing about us is we get this illusion, always something so difficult. Well, who says it's difficult? Right?
Well, it's a process. We have to keep in mind that anything that we do that's new, learning, it's a process, and it's something that isn't going to happen all at once.
Exactly. You could say it would be very difficult to fly a jet plane, right? Did anybody here? Well, maybe not for Mr. Robert. He flies helicopters in his spare time, right? But flying a jet plane for me would be difficult. But it doesn't mean I can't do it. And how difficult it is really just what I put in my own brain. But if I take it and I took the lessons and I broke it down into tiny bits, I could end up flying the plane, right? So same with Taekwondo. So you just got to, the point here is you need to be aware of this because you need to know as instructors what's going on in your student's head. Okay? When you're teaching that white belt and you're teaching that gold belt and orange belt, you got to think about what's going on in their brain in terms of this illusion of difficulty. You're saying, well, what's so hard about this? Look, I'm just trying to show you, and it's easy. No, in their mind, it's not only difficult, but they may even have an exaggerated illusion of difficulty that you need to be aware of. And if you're aware of that as amateur psychiatrists, you can actually work into that, okay? And if you understand that, you say, oh yeah, that's what's going on with that student. That's why they're feeling so challenged about this. And then you can break that down and come around and work on them on a different way, okay? I hope that makes sense, yes?
Sure. One thing too with doing the Gordon Liefeld seminars is that anytime there's growth, for the most part, especially when it's difficult stuff, there's always going to be tears.
Yeah.
And so be prepared to have students that break down. It's okay. Because if you can work them through that.
Right, that's in here. That's in here a little bit further on, actually. That's the exact point. Okay, so got the whole illusion of difficulty. You guys have heard me many times. Don't say try, just do it. Okay? As soon as you say try, then you set up this whole perceived difficulty in front of you. Okay? So don't try, just do it. There's no such thing as can't. Same thing, you guys know in this school. And again, you relate to your students. There's no such thing as can't. Okay? How to choose an instructor. Okay? You guys aren't necessarily choosing instructors because you're already stuck with me. That's too bad. But again, you're an instructor that another parent is going to choose. Okay? There's a parent coming in off the street looking for the 6-year-old to learn martial arts. So they're looking at you. So you need to know what are the qualities of a good instructor that other people are looking for. Okay? So how to choose an instructor. Very important here, guys. So you can make a big star by this or whatever because I want you to memorize it for later. Okay? A good teacher can communicate clearly. Everybody agree?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
An excellent teacher can speak the language of the body by showing how it should feel. So if you're an excellent teacher, you're not just talking to the student, you're engaging them and you're showing it how it feels to do the pattern. Okay? So you're taking it a step further. Okay? A great teacher speaks the language of emotion, so now you engage with your student on the emotional level and you really get them excited about what you're doing or what they're learning. And you can inspire and motivate the love of the sport. So a great teacher can do that. So a student comes in here, if you're a great teacher, you're going to get them that you love Taekwondo so much, they're going to love Taekwondo. Okay? You can transfer that to the student. Okay? So, you got a good teacher, an excellent teacher, a great teacher. The master instructor can do all three. Okay? So, it's very common that some instructors can only do one or the other. You know, parts and bits. Okay? But as you're gelling and you guys are growing as instructors, that's where you want to get to, where you can do all three. So you can communicate clearly, you can inspire the student, you can motivate them, and then you can transfer that whole love of the sport and get so they feel, not just showing them how to do a specific movement, they understand it, they feel it. Okay? Hope that makes sense, and that's a good target for each one of you in this room to be shooting for. Okay, and it just finishes there and says the best instructors don't just teach a subject, but they convey the principles of living it. Okay, awareness. This is a really interesting topic here, guys. Awareness. Without awareness, you can't hear the teacher. And then there's another saying here, there are no mistakes, only lessons. Okay. What we're talking about here, and this happened here just last week, it was so right in my face, it was almost funny that it was such a perfect example. But I'm filming a black belt last Friday, and as I'm filming, okay, picture any of you guys here doing your second degree patterns or your third degree patterns, right? And you're getting frustrated. Okay. This student, when she's doing her patterns, she's getting discouraged, she's getting frustrated, she wants to quit. Okay. Why is that? Okay. Because she's noticing all her mistakes. Right? She's feeling like she's just not good enough. Okay? I'm not ready. I need to practice more. My block's not good enough. This technique's not good enough. Okay? That's awareness, right? She's aware. You guys need to be aware of where are you at in terms of performance, in terms of how you're doing the techniques. Okay? You need to feel that yourself. You need to feel how you're doing. Okay? That's awareness. Okay? Until you get to that place, you never really start to grow and learn. Okay? So the awareness is like almost like the beginning of becoming a master. Okay? So here I am, if you guys picture this, here I am filming this student who's grumbling and complaining and feeling like she wants to quit. But because I understand the process, right? I understand the process. What am I doing on my end? I'm saying, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not going to let her quit, right? But I'm not panicking. I don't have to try and convince her because I'm excited that she actually, because she's feeling concerned, not feeling good about her patterns, I'm excited because now she's actually just, without realizing it, sometimes you feel like you're getting worse. That's another way Dan Millman explains it in the book. You actually feel like you're getting worse. If you ever feel like any of you guys here you're getting worse when you're training hard, pat yourself on the back. That's a good thing. Okay? That's the beginning of mastery. Okay? Because you're more aware. Earlier on, you don't care because you're not even aware. You're not even paying attention. Okay? But when you feel that way, that's the beginning of becoming a master. Okay? So, but the reason that's important is it's important for you guys as students, but it's also important for you as instructors. Okay? Because what happens if you get a student like that? Okay? You need to understand these things so that student that's in front of you isn't getting discouraged and quit, and you're standing there like, well, I don't know what to do. I guess they are getting worse. Right? That's not the case. Right? It's a good thing. Okay. So awareness is critical, and you also need to understand this, and again, I'm just using Mr. Bain as an example because we sat through a lot of videos here in August. It was getting super frustrating with a lot of these students shooting their videos, and they're making mistake after mistake after mistake, and you're trying to correct them, and they're still making the same mistake. Because of their lack of awareness, they're not seeing the mistake. Okay? So there's a process and a process of patience there that, maybe at some point they're just not ready. Right? They're just not there where they can see that. And you can try as hard as you want. You're not going to make them see it. Okay? So you just need, again, as an instructor, understand, okay, that's where they're at in the process of learning. They don't have that awareness yet. We just got to be patient with them and maybe let it go or find another approach to correct that. Okay, and here I've got a note here. In order to correct an error, you must be aware of it. Okay? So a lot of times students are doing their pattern, bound, bound, bound. They don't know they're making mistakes. Okay? And you can show them, and then they're just making the same mistake. Okay? So our job is to try and help the students see that. But again, it can be very difficult until they elevate themselves to actually be more aware of themselves. Okay? And then I comment here, growth of awareness is a good thing. Okay, we talked about that. So just be aware of students getting discouraged. Okay? Watch out for a student's self-esteem. Okay? You always got to watch out for their self-esteem and understand and have a sense of where they're at when, especially when you're critiquing, right? One sure sign of growing awareness is you feel like you're getting worse. I commented that already. Be patient with your students. You do not want them to quit before the mountaintop. Again, you're working these students along. As an instructor, you have to always be encouraging. You can't give up on them, or then they're really toast, right? Most of them, not most of them, but a lot of students, they're ready to give up on themselves. A lot of these black stripes, they'll be ready to quit before their black belt test, right? You never went through that, did you, huh? Right? So our job as instructors need to be aware of that. You guys got the experience and know what's going through these students' minds in terms of them feeling like they're getting worse, feeling like they want to quit before the mountaintop. Okay? Praise, correct, praise. That comes from Senior Grandmaster. When you're working with students, how do you critique? Praise, correct, praise. Okay? If there's one saying to get burned in your brain, burn that in. Praise, correct, praise. So a student has a bad front kick you need to fix. First praise, then give them the correction, and then finish with praise. Okay? That's the thing. It'll work every time.
One thing to keep in mind is that we've all been there testing for our black belts. And we've all been where we get frustrated and we want to say, okay, I can't do this. I quit. He's pulled us through. Now it's our job to help our students pull through. And it helps them to know that they're not alone. And so if we sit there and say to them, yeah, I had a similar experience. This is what happened with me. It helps them because it gives them the encouragement to know that, hey, I'm not the only one that's felt this way.
Some of them might feel, who do they talk to? Who do they share that with? They might feel a little bit more on their own. And again, they're going through all these negative thoughts or fears or whatever. And I've never seen a case where there's really too much encouragement. Okay, praise, correct, praise. Okay, and keep in mind too, as you're teaching students, you're trying to change these gold belts into orange and green and so on. Change is not easy. Everything you're teaching them is new, and their minds and bodies need time to adjust. Okay, so you have to be aware of that as also as instructors. Okay, they need time to adjust. Okay, I got a note here in the samurai story out of the book. It's a neat little story about awareness. Okay, this is more advanced, of course, but neat story about awareness. So this father is trying to decide who to pass things on to. Which of his three sons can he trust the most? Which of his three sons are the most aware, that are ready for this big promotion or this big to take over what the father does, right? So he's trying to decide with his three sons which one. So he's going to test the three boys. Okay. So the first boy goes walking. So the challenge was they've got a samurai sword. Okay. So the one boy's heading into the barn and opens the barn door, walks through the door, and he's all ready. It's dark and everything. And boom, bag of rice falls and hits him on the head. Okay, so he's out. Now the second boy comes along. And then before the bag of rice drops, he's already moved, cuts the bag of rice. Okay, didn't get him. The third boy comes along. He doesn't even go in the building because he already senses what's going to happen. He already senses the danger. Okay, so you see the difference in awareness is that perception of seeing that before you're even there. Okay? So there's three different levels. You can walk right into it, duh. You can walk in and then maybe be able to defend yourself, or you can just totally avoid it and have that perception and that sixth sense. Okay, feedback to students, just quickly. There's different ways that feedback gets presented to students. It can be from other students. It can be visual with video or mirrors and things. The coach obviously gives the student feedback. And another way for a student to see themselves, we're talking about how we were just saying a few minutes ago, how students don't really see their mistakes. Another really cool way you can show a student their mistake is you exaggerate it. You have them exaggerate it. Okay? So if somebody's doing a really poor mid-block or something, and they're just not getting it, you're trying to explain, you exaggerate it, and then it kind of clicks in their brain, and oh, okay, that's what's going on. So that's another method. Okay? The other thing is, if you see a student make a mistake, have them do it on purpose. Okay? So now, show them, teach them how to do the mistake on purpose. Okay? So what's a mistake if you do it on purpose? It's no longer a mistake. Right? If you do it on purpose, it's not a mistake, right? So that's another way you can draw out a student that's just habitually doing something incorrect. Right? You can pull that out and highlight it so that then they can see that, then you can work on it. And just keeping in mind, practice improvement takes time. Okay, we all know that. Okay, teaching kids. Really important stuff, especially for, well, everybody, all you guys here at some point, you're teaching children. Okay? Again, here's one of the concepts that he really illustrates well in this book. And whether or not I got this from the book or not, but this has always been my sense in our school, guys. You know this? This goes from people like everybody from Riley to Annie that started at 4 years old. I don't know, Riley was at 4 maybe, but Annie was, were you 4 or 5 maybe when you started? 4? Yeah. So when young kids start, I've never been concerned with their quality. I don't look at a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old kid and say, oh, what a crappy square style. Right? I don't get excited if they don't have any power. I don't care. Right? I don't pick, like you'll show them, you show and correct, you're teaching them, but I don't get excited about their quality of anything. Okay? Kids need to feel good about their bodies. Okay? So that's rule number 1. That's why they're here. They want to feel success. They need to feel that success. They need to feel just good about and comfortable in their own bodies, comfortable with what they're doing. Okay? There's lots of time later on to do all the improving and tweaking and all the rest of that. So they need to feel success in their early endeavors. So that's why Taekwondo is so good too, because we can break it down into little tiny bits. Okay? Teach them little things at a time. Hey, they got success at this. Oh, they got success at this. Hey, I can do a pseudo chop. You know, all these little things we're teaching them. Every time we're putting this encouragement into them, this success, and building on that. Okay? They this need to learn enjoyment of active movement. Again, need to learn just to enjoy what they're doing, to enjoy in class. If it's jumping up and down or kicking or whatever it might be, it's just that feeling of accomplishment. Okay, and developing that confidence and experience from just, again, learning step by step by step. And then this big comment here, which is critical of all, any of you parents would be aware of this, and a lot of us can fall into the trap sometimes too, expectations with our kids. But you guys need to be aware of it as instructors. Is success should be measured not by parental goals or aspirations, but by a child's beaming smile. Okay? So again, what we're about here is teaching children and teaching them to love what they're doing and feel good about what they're doing. There's no measurement of good, bad. Oh, you know, we're not keeping score. Okay? It's not about keeping score. Again, there's enough time for that later in life. Okay? Developing talent. Okay? Again, this stuff's critical if you're going to be good instructors, guys. We talked earlier about the master instructor, right? We talked about the 3 different kinds of teachers, and then a master instructor who does all 3. A lot of that, what that takes to do that is in these notes, okay? So that's what we're talking about tonight. You're going to have the notes to refresh yourself, but you need to read the book at some point too. And you'll all be better instructors for it. Okay, developing talent, the mind. Okay, so there's things to deal with when a student comes into class. There's things we've got to deal with, like focus, stress, and negative thoughts. These are things that inhibit students from learning, okay, that get in the way. And when I'm talking about students, I'm talking about you guys too, okay? So you need to be aware of that yourself on the training floor, okay? Am I trying to train and do a great front kick, but I got some kind of negative thought that's nagging at me from the day before, right? So you need to be aware of that. And that brings in the importance of our quiet time, our meditation time at the beginning of class. Okay, of course that's what it's for. You want to be free of mental distractions and learn how to have our mind in the present. Okay, here's a quick drill for everybody. Put your hand out, put your pen in your hand like this. Okay? So everybody just like this. And then when I say go, you're going to throw it up, not too high, but maybe this high, and then catch it. Okay? Ready? Go.
Oh, I didn't go very high.
Oh, I didn't go very high.
You can almost predict who's going to do that and who's not. Okay, what's the point of this little exercise? Let's do it one more time. Somebody tell me what's the point. Okay, go.
I moved my hat.
Who can tell me the point of the exercise?
Using your brain. I can combination.
My thought is I'm going to throw it up only as high as I think I can catch it.
Right. That's the whole point of this is just to illustrate for a split second when you guys did this, for a split second your focus was actually only on the pen.
Yeah.
For a split second. Okay? Except maybe the guys that missed the pen. But, okay, so that split second of focus, that's what you're striving for all the time when you're training, when you're doing whatever you're doing. If you're doing your poomsae, if you're free sparring, okay, that focus. All right. Okay, the mental focus too, guys, has to do with, a good comparison is the simplicity of a baby. When babies are learning, okay, they're not stressed, okay, they're not worried about what's for dinner. They're just focused on whatever they're doing. They're relaxed, okay? Okay, as an instructor, you just need to be aware with your students, self-concept with your student. What does your student believe? They might have a totally negative self-concept of themselves, okay? So you have to be aware of that. Again, that's things that you can dig out as you're teaching somebody over a period of time, and you're just wondering, how come I'm not getting anywhere with this student? And then you start, if you're aware of these sort of ideas, think, okay, well, maybe this is what's going on. And then you explore that. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But if you do detect that, then you can work on correcting that, okay? They could have a totally negative self-concept of themselves, okay? Or they got a fear of failure, okay? Students, including, again, when I talk about students, I'm talking about you guys too, okay? We need to embrace failure. Failure is not something to be afraid of. Failure is part of learning, okay? So you need to believe that, and you need to get your students to believe that, okay? Failure is a good thing, okay? So if somebody doesn't have a fear of failure, they're going to learn way faster. They're not going to be scared to try new things. It's how we learn, okay? Self-criticism. Most of you are familiar with this, okay? Self-talk, self-criticism. There's two kinds, constructive and destructive, okay? Again, this is all stuff as a master instructor you guys need to be aware of, okay? So the mind, that's talent, the mind. Emotions. So people come into Taekwondo, you're teaching them how to kick and punch. We think of Taekwondo most of the time as a physical activity, physical sport. But your emotions in any kind of physical sport, in anything in life, our emotions play into that, right? So we need to be aware of what's going on there too, okay? So a couple points here in terms of accepting your emotions, okay? So as yourself, and then when you understand yourself, then you can understand your students better, okay? That whatever emotions you may have are fine, you just don't put any power to them, okay? So accept your emotions, know your purpose, okay? So if something's emotionally, something's just really stressing you out, or you're really worrying about something or whatever, okay? Accept that, okay, it's there, that's fine. I'm not going to do anything about it right now, but you need to know your purpose of why you're doing what you're doing, okay? And then just do what you need to do, okay? And I got a note here just a bit after that. What's the difference between fear and excitement? Who read ahead on your notes? Our emotions can be a good thing, okay? Our emotions can provide motivation, okay? So, to keep emotions balanced, we must breathe. Natural, relaxed breathing. How many times over the years have you guys heard me talk about being relaxed? Relax, relax, relax. It's a cornerstone of this. And probably, I'm sure I heard it lots of other places, but I know it's a cornerstone in this book. It's probably where I got it from. Being relaxed, being relaxed. It's so critical to any martial art. Okay? So, but the difference between fear and excitement is how you breathe. So in other words, be aware if you're off one direction emotionally, like say you're feeling fearful, just stop for a second and think, okay, how am I breathing? And adjust your breathing. Don't worry about the thought. Don't fight the thought, but just check your breathing. How am I breathing? Okay? Because you'll notice if you're fearful, you're generally holding your breath. Okay? So that fear energy, you can just transfer that and change that just by how you breathe. Okay? So just be aware of your breathing. Yes, Ms. Merlin, quick question?
Well, I was going to ask you, you've kind of sort of answered it, but if we're aware of our breathing and say we are fearful and we find we're not breathing, or if we're hyperventilating or whatever we're doing, how do you get that under control then?
Yeah, well, and again, breathing, how you breathe is critical, and that's a whole nother awareness thing, experience and awareness thing for you guys. Okay, as black belts, martial artists, you need to understand the importance of your breathing. Okay, start doing this every day. Is anytime you're doing stuff, you're just walking down the street, driving, just stop. Hey, how am I breathing? You'll catch yourself all kinds of times holding your breath, lots of times breathing really shallow, or you'll find yourself doing all kinds of weird things. So stop and check. Okay, how am I breathing? Am I breathing just nice and relaxed? Okay. You've got to be aware of your breathing. It's a cornerstone of any martial arts, cornerstone of self-defense. If you're ever under attack, your breathing is what's going to save you. Okay? How you breathe. Okay, physical talent. Again, we mentioned a little bit earlier, resistance to change. Our bodies naturally resist change. Even mentally we resist change. Okay? It takes time. So in terms of developing physical talent, you need to be aware of patience to make that change, okay? And of course, what we eat and how we diet and everything is important in terms of change as well. Or, sorry, in terms of developing physical talent. Okay, there's 4 S's we talk about with physical talent. Strength, stamina, suppleness, and sensitivity, okay? So I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on strength right now. It's still important even in our martial art, but the other things are are more important to focus on right at the moment. Okay. Relaxation, again, is so important. The master key, that should say master, not matter. Okay, the master key is relaxation. Suppleness, okay, in terms of flexibility, suppleness is not just stretching. Okay. All of us have tension just from life, from stress. So the more we can get rid of that, the better. We need to listen to our bodies. So when it comes to stretching, there's a lot of misconceptions we can have sometimes. So here's just some simple rules for stretching. Okay, you need to breathe and relax. Stretching should feel good. You can stretch less but more often. Stretch when you're warm, everybody knows that. And listen to your body and do what feels okay for you. Okay? So you're teaching a class and you're teaching students to stretch. It's not about hearing everybody in the class screaming in agony. Okay? Back pain, this is just a quick thing. Many of you know this by now. Somebody that has chronic back pain, generally there's going to be one or more of these issues. Weak abs, stiff lower back, weak lower back, or tight hamstrings. Okay, so anybody's having low back problems. Okay, so suppleness is a cornerstone of being a good martial artist. That flexibility. Okay, sensitivity. Okay, being sensitive to physical things, or that can apply to all our senses too. So in the book, Mr. Millman also tells a story of like a Tai Chi grandmaster who he's so sensitive to touch, right? Like say he's just in the zone and he's just here like this, and he's so sensitive to touch that a fly lands on him and he sags down from the weight of the fly. That's how sensitive he can feel things. Okay? So that's obviously an exaggeration, but just to illustrate, okay? Sensitivity. Touch is most needed for awareness. There's a law called the law of accommodation. Steady, patient, and progress is going to show results, okay? Just steady, 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 okay? It's not about 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, okay? Training doesn't have to hurt. If training hurts, slow down. There's no need to rush. Again, you guys need to understand this yourself, but also when you're teaching other students, okay? Building up stamina for training for a target, 6 weeks. So what we're talking about here is students say they're prepping for their black belt exam. You can get from here to here, A to B, prepped for something pretty easily in a 6 week period. Okay, that's sort of general, but it's true. So if you're prepping for something for competition or for your black belt exam, you can look at that 6 week period and you can prep yourself in that 6 week period, and you don't have to go from here to here. Do it in a nice gradual manner. Build yourself up, okay? Whether it's push-ups, whether it's aerobics, whatever it is, but be aware as an elite athlete that you're prepping yourself over that time frame, okay? And again, so it doesn't have to hurt. Like, you don't have to kill yourself that, 3 or 4 days in a row you're just busting your butt and you're ready to die. You're doing too much at once. Spread it out. Pace yourself over the period of 6 weeks. Okay, natural laws. Okay, we mentioned about babies before. Train like a child. Babies, when they're learning, you watch a child learn, they don't have any limiting beliefs. Right? So they're not sitting there saying to themselves, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. Right? They're not getting emotional about things either. Right? So they don't have emotions restricting them from learning how to walk or jump off the coffee table or whatever it happens to be. And they don't generally have a bunch of physical tensions either. Right? So, but you see how quickly children learn, babies learn. Okay? So if we can be like that, use that as an example, to be free of limiting beliefs, free of emotions holding us back, and free of physical tensions. We'll be that much further ahead as students, and again, needing to understand that as instructors. Okay? Just skipping down here a little bit, we must help the student see the goal at the top of the mountain. Again, as an instructor, you always want the student to see where they're going, and you're helping them along that path. Another key thing where you guys have heard me say this a lot, you can't be a good instructor if you're not a good student. Okay? So you can't help a student along the path if you're not on the path with them. Okay? Who can tell me what the story of Pumse is? Okay, if somebody was doing, if you're doing your patterns, say, whatever degree you are right now, you've done all your patterns all the way up to Gumgang, Taybak, whatever. If somebody asked you to explain the story of each Pumse, not just the meanings, not the words, the meanings, but the story of the Pumse all the way, how would you describe, how would you explain the story of the Pumse, Bobby?
That's starting up at the top, like with heaven, and it's coming down to the earth.
Okay, yeah, that's a little bit in the descriptions that are already there, like Ilchong, heaven and earth, and that. But no, more than that, I'm looking for more. If somebody's going further than that, looking for some deep, meaningful, what's the meaning of Chilchong, like way deep in, or who can explain that to me?
Was it not something because it's a process? When you start with pattern 1 and the higher you go up, the more you're learning, the more precise, the more different, more complicated techniques. So then it's like a process of just developing and growing, and I don't know if that's what you're after.
It's close, Carlin, actually. She's kind of on the right track, because the story of Pumse is your own story. It's different for each one of us. Okay? So, your journey through Taekwondo, your journey through all that, that's what it means. For somebody else to tell me, oh, this is what Chil Chong's all about, or this is, what the heck does that mean? It doesn't, right? It's your story. It's what it means to you. What have you learned through that whole process? Okay?
So it's like your own personal journey.
It's your own personal journey, your own personal story.
And I guess our portfolios kind of show a bit of that story, because you're looking back at that time and photos and things you've written down and thoughts and places you've been.
Yeah, and that might be another really important reason to value your portfolio, so you can look back on that. Okay, very important. Okay, developing talent is best done with the absence of mental, physical, and emotional obstructions. We talked about that a bit earlier. Okay, there's a principle of non-resistance. Okay, principle of non-resistance. Okay, don't fight it. If pushed, pull. If pulled, push. We haven't talked about that too much in black belt class, but some of you that took the self-defense earlier last spring, I think it was, whenever that was, that's a lot of what was probably in that. Okay, if somebody's attacking you and they're pulling you, push. Okay, if somebody's attacking you and they're pushing you, pull. Right? Okay, that's the principle of non-resistance. But you can take that same principle in life. If you go through life and you're resisting everything around you, that causes stress. Right? Stress is caused by resisting, by always butting up against what is already there. It's like you got this thing going on in your life. In some cases, yeah, you can change it, but in other cases, it's just there. It's a fact of life. The more you want to fight it, you're just causing yourself stress. Right? It's like, let it go. Right? Let it go. Okay? So, stress happens when the mind resists what is. So something that already is, it's like, okay, if somebody died, but you don't want to, your mind doesn't want to accept the fact that they died, you're going to cause yourself a ton of stress. But if you just realize, hey, I can't do nothing about it, it's happened, that's what is, you let it go, and you move on, right? That's what I'm getting at, is that kind of stress. It's not that you look at things like just happen to use death as an example because it's a very traumatic thing for all of us. But it's not lessening tears. It's not lessening the trauma or our hurt from something like that, or could be from a relationship thing, or could be from all kinds of things. There's still that trauma. We're still human, but you have to accept what is, and then let it go. It's a fact. That's what's there. Okay. Don't try, just do it. We talked about try a lot of times. Loose and relaxed. Fighting things too. This whole non-resistance. You want your students to trust the process of training, to be patient. You need to trust it, and they need to trust it. That training is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't get to your black belt overnight. Okay? It's a process. So trust the process of training. Trust the process of life. There are no mistakes, only lessons. So you want your students to feel that way too. To not get all hung up on mistakes. There's a principle of balance, just quickly, a principle of balance is, when we do this thing where we're on one leg and here, and then we close our eyes, and then some of us fall over, some of us don't. Try it sometime, if you can think of it. Try it when you're really upset about something, and then try it when you're really feeling good to see the difference. Balancing on one leg, okay? And you'll notice the difference. Days where you wondering why I can't, there's probably something really nagging at you, something really weighing on you. But days where you're feeling really great, light, the world's good, everything's good, just won $1 million in the lottery, you could probably stand on one leg all day and have no problem with balance. Okay? So that's how stress affects our balance. And our emotional balance translates into our physical balance. Okay? Mind, body, emotions is all tied together. Alright? Okay. Just quickly, I'm just going to wrap up, guys, because I don't want to go late.